Hello! If you follow my blog, Marla Plans Small, then you know that I sew, embroider, do all kinds of crafts, and I do a lot of tutorials over there. And the ones that aren't necessarily tutorials, if they're just projects I'm working on, I'll link to all of the design files where I found like the embroidery files, things like that. But I've never done a crafting video, and the other day I thought, why have I not? Normally when I start a new project and I have questions, I a lot of times go to YouTube to see how other people do it. So I thought maybe it would help if I did the same thing, because sometimes there aren't videos out there for the kind of projects that I'm looking for. So today we're going to do a project that is great for a beginner embroiderer, for someone who's been doing it a long time but kind of wants something new or fun to try out. And we're going to be embroidering a monogram on white napkins. So it's very simple. We're doing a white thread on a white napkin. These napkins belong to my client's mother-in-law. They were her napkins. So with any project, you always want to do your very best job. Take your time, measure, measure, measure before you do any cuts, before you do any sewing or embroidering, anything like that. But especially for an heirloom item, because if you mess it up, you can't go out and replace it with another one. You want to be someone that people can rely on, that they know that you're going to do a good job and they can entrust you with their projects. So that's what we're going to be working on today. I'm going to kind of walk you through it. It's not complicated, it doesn't take a lot of time, and you could do all kinds of different designs and get really creative with these napkins. So let's get started. For this project, I'm going to be using a tearaway stabilizer. I love tearaway. I know some people don't recommend it for quite a few projects, but I almost always use tearaway. And this you can order on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description box below this video. I'm going to be hooping it into this hoop, which is going to can create up to a 4x4 design. And it looks really grubby because it's got spray glue all over it from previous projects, and you'll see why in just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and hoop one of these squares into this hoop. The hoop is simply two pieces. It is one that goes on top of the other. This little screw can be loosened or tightened to fit whatever the needs to get your piece of stabilizer in here. And we are going to be hooping our project. So instead of laying our fabric inside just like we did with the stabilizer, we are going to float it on top. So first what we need to do is we need to mark the center point of the stabilizer, and I'm going to mark the outline point so that we can get our fabric exactly where it needs to be. To do that, we have this grid that fits inside, and this is the center mark, and then these are the outline marks that are going to help me square up my fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that. I'm going to mark it lightly with a pencil so that I can see it on the project, but no ink or marker will transfer to my white napkin. So I've marked my points on the stabilizer that's in the hoop, and here on the napkin I've marked the center of where I want the design to be. The P is 2.5 inches. Well, I came up an inch from the bottom, and so from the bottom to the 2.5 inch mark, this is the center, and the center from the edge of the napkin to the fold. So I have it marked lightly with pencil. The white thread will cover that up, but the pencil will make sure that nothing shows through the thread or shows through the back of the napkin. So now I need to get this mark centered up with the center of the stabilizer. In order to float the napkin onto the hoop, I'm going to use a basting spray. I don't love this kind, so I'm going to look for another one. Just keep that in mind, that this would work, but I'm going to see if there's something better before I completely recommend this to you as the go-to. So I do a light spray, I shake this up, and I do this outside, and I spray mainly on the outside edges. I try to stay away from where the thread and the design will be embroidered, because I find that it can gum up my needle and gum up my machine. And that means that I've got to change my needle even quicker on this project, or I could run into some problems with the thread getting caught. So that's what I found with this spray right here. So we're going to do a light spray around the edge, and then we're going to line up our napkin. So I have the center mark of the napkin. You can also mark it on the back like I did on the front, lined up with the center mark of the stabilizer. And then I use these marks to keep a straight line. And I'm going to unfold it. This is the top of the napkin where the design will be embroidered. And then I'm just going to press it down to stick to that glue. One reason that I prefer to float rather than to hoop, it's much easier to get the center line and to keep it there. I find that when I hoop instead of floating, it can be harder to keep the fabric centered and to get the design exactly where I want it. So it's much easier, in my opinion, to float it. If you need extra support, you need this fabric to really stay more than what the glue is going to hold, you can pin the fabric to the stabilizer. I've done that for some projects, but overall the glue works pretty well. My machine is threaded and I have the bobbin thread also ready to go. There's plenty of that there. So now we need to get the design onto the embroidery machine. Now that I'm ready to embroider, I need the file that I purchased to come over to my embroidery machine. But first I would show you, I've got the program Sew What Pro. It's really great for editing files, for merging, doing all sorts of things that would be very difficult and impossible to do on your machine alone. But you don't have to have Sew What Pro for this project. This is a file, this is exactly as I purchased it, so you could just do the file straight over to your embroidery machine. The file was originally this P 2.5 inches. I imported it into my Sew What Pro just to kind of look at it and test it out, and that's what's called P napkin now. And I'm going to drag it over to No Name, which is my embroidery machine. I've got it hooked up to my computer through a USB. My embroidery machine is a Brother HE1. I bought this at Hancock several years ago. I think that the actual model number HE1 was specifically for Hancock. So you can't get this HE1 anymore that I know of, but this exact machine is still out there. It will just have a different model number, and I don't think it has this blue design on it. I'll find it and I'll link it down below for you. This is a great starter machine because it's affordable, it's easy to use, and this is what most people start out with. Now I want to open my file, so I'm going to click here. This is showing that it's connected to my computer. There's the file that I dragged over, so I'll click that, and then I'm going to upload it, and there's my file. Now within here you can adjust the layout. You can move it all around that 4x4 space. And this is blinking because I don't have my hoop yet attached. You can make it smaller, make it bigger. You can do quite a few things within this without having to have a program. But if you're wanting to edit, or if you're wanting to merge this with other letters or other designs, it does help to have a program like Sew What Pro. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to embroider. So the next thing that I need to do is I need to put my hoop onto the embroidery machine. So here it will just click right in. My hoop is clicked into place over here, and a lot of people like to roll up the fabric and use masking tape or something like that to hold it down, but I find that I can just hold it. I take my time, I stop the machine if I need to check. You just want to make sure that it doesn't slip under the hoop, because then it's going to embroider to itself on the underside. Once you lower the foot, this will turn green, and that means you're ready to go. So you'll just push that to start embroidering. One thing that I like to do is, once I've started and I've got a few stitches in, I like to stop the machine and check my tension and just make sure that it's how I want it, because each file that you buy from different designers can be slightly different as far as how your tension needs to be adjusted. On this machine, on my particular machine, I have found that it's not quite 3.5, a little bit less, is a good amount for most projects. On a machine of this similar model, I have seen that some people have it all the way to a 0. That has not worked well for me, for my thread, for my machine. So this is about where I usually keep it for kind of those middle easy fabrics. So you're just going to have to test it out for your machine. You're going to have to just use some test fabrics, some test projects to kind of learn your machine and to see what would be a good tension for you. Now my project is finished, and I'm going to go ahead and take the hoop off and show you how to remove the napkin from the stabilizer. So you just have to pop this top part of the frame out from the bottom half of the frame, and then I push the stabilizer through. So I've pulled it out of the hoop, and here's the back side. So the great thing about tearaway stabilizer is it just simply tears. It does take 2 hands for me to do this, so I'm going to start tearing to show you what it looks like. It tears very simply. You can just be very gentle as you pull it around the edges of the letters, but this is a great one to use because it's not going to leave anything behind. With cutaway, you probably will have a little bit left around the letter, which is good for some projects. You do need cutaway for some, but for something like this, I don't want my clients or customers to have any stabilizer on the back. You also can do one that washes away, but then I have to wash the napkin. But I don't want to wash these just in case she has some certain way she wants them to be washed, since they are a family item. If there are any areas where it's hard to kind of get the stabilizer, like this little curly key right here, you can get some tweezers and just lightly pull that out. I need to clip where the thread was. This is where the thread started and ended. And then here, this is something I've noticed with this particular design from this company. The needle comes this way and then it skips to come here and meet back around, and it catches some threads when it does that. And there's a dog barking outside my window, so I'm sorry about that. But this is something I've noticed with this design. So I can clip this thread. You just want to be sure not to clip any threads that are sewn down, because then your design will start to unravel. These are the scissors that came with my machine. I like these. I've gotten some other scissors and I just don't ever use them, so I always use these. They're sharp and they have a good point to them. So I'm going to go ahead and clip these threads. So there's the back of the design. And here's the front, and I will take just a cool iron to help get out the wrinkles, because sometimes when you hoop, even though I didn't hoop here, I did fold it in order to get the crease and to get the center line, so I want to get all those little creases and wrinkles out for the client. So here are 2 monogrammed embroidered napkins, not yet ironed, that would make a great gift if you know someone getting married or a housewarming gift. This would be something that would have a personal touch to it and something that they could keep for a long time. So I hope this video was helpful to you. I hope it gave you some ideas and ways to be creative and get you excited to get out your embroidery machine and to try something new. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.